Welcome to this explainer. When we think of the Supreme Court, we usually picture those massive, grand marble columns, right? Historic decisions, a deep sense of tradition, all of that. But well, behind those heavy courthouse doors, there is actually a very modern and honestly a kind of shadowy reality taking shape. We are talking about a growing security wall that is fundamentally altering how the nation's top judges live and work.
Okay, let's dive right into this. I want you to imagine, just for a second, your own daily movements being completely restricted. Think about what it would feel like to wake up tomorrow and realize that just running to the grocery store, going to a local community event, or even taking a quick walk around your own neighborhood required a full-on, calculated risk assessment and a security detail. Your basic freedom of public movement suddenly just gone. So who is experiencing this profound loss of normalcy right now? You'd probably think of A-list celebrities or heads of state, right? But today, we're actually looking at the architects of the American legal system.
All right, Section 1, a change in public life. So, we're shifting our focus from that hypothetical scenario directly into the real-world reality of a sitting U.S. Supreme Court justice. Because this isn't just about abstract legal debates anymore. This is about the day-to-day human experience of the people tasked with interpreting our laws. Recently, the curtain was really pulled back on this issue. On a Thursday, down at a legal conference in Florida, Justice Clarence Thomas spoke incredibly candidly to the attendees there. He didn't just give a dry talk about jurisprudence or case law, he actually opened up about the very personal, stark changes to his everyday life. He revealed that security concerns around the Supreme Court haven't just been this low-level background hum. They have worsened significantly during his time on the bench.
To put that into perspective, Justice Thomas noted that when he first became a circuit justice, back during his early tenure, he had much different, relatively minimal security concerns. It was a time of, relatively minimal anxiety regarding his personal safety in public. But his present-day public life, that has radically shifted. To describe the current state of judicial affairs, he used a very specific, striking word. He said it has become very, very dicey. Now, that is a powerful descriptor coming from a Supreme Court justice, dicey. It really paints a vivid picture of unpredictability and constant underlying risk.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it humanizes the whole situation. He told the crowd, "I'm not able to move around as much as I used to." Hearing that, well, you really get a sense of the personal impact, right? The growing threats have literally restricted his movements outside the courthouse. It has directly affected his ability to simply attend public events and participate in regular public life. It's a stark reminder that behind those black robes are actual individuals navigating a world that feels increasingly unsafe for them.
Let's move on to Section 2. Escalating physical and cyber threats.
Now that we understand the personal toll this takes on a justice, we really need to zoom out. We need to shift from that micro-level anecdote to the macro-level factual reality of what is actually happening across the entire justice system. The absolutely crucial point here is that this danger is expanding, and it is multidimensional. Justice Thomas is definitely not an isolated case. This is a full-blown institutional problem. The targets aren't just sitting at the Supreme Court level. They include federal judges all across the country, and they even include prosecutors who are frankly just doing their jobs. And notice the nature of these threats. We are seeing a distinct escalation in physical threats, yes, for sure, but equally concerning is the escalation in cyber threats. The digital footprint of these public servants is literally being weaponized against them. It's a comprehensive, multi-front security crisis for the judiciary.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 2022 Catalyst event.
Let's see how this builds, because while this threat matrix has been growing steadily over the years, the security protocols didn't just tighten in a vacuum. A very specific period accelerated the whole shebang for the court. We start with that early career baseline we established earlier, where concerns were significantly lower, but then we hit the year 2022. This is the factual anchor of the current crisis. In 2022, concerns over judicial safety severely intensified. Following the leak of the Roe v. Wade draft ruling, an armed man was actually arrested near the home of Justice Brett Kavanaugh. This was a physical, tangible threat right at the literal doorstep of a sitting justice. That single event acted as a massive catalyst. It proved that these abstract threats had the potential to become very real, very fast. And that brings us directly up to the 2026 timeline, where the Supreme Court is now pushing for official, sustained, legislative action to properly secure the justices.
And that leads to Section 4, seeking congressional security funding. So this brings our story arc full circle. We've seen the personal loss of freedom, the rising physical and cyber threats across the board, and that huge catalyst event that proved exactly how vulnerable the system really is.
Now we're looking at the institutional solution. To combat this unprecedented rise in physical and digital dangers, the highest court in the land is taking direct action. The U.S. Supreme Court is officially seeking additional security funding from Congress. They are formally going to the legislative branch and asking for the necessary budget to build that security wall we talked about at the very beginning. It's a formal recognition that the old ways of protecting the judiciary are just no longer sufficient for the modern threat landscape.
So, what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with this final, incredibly important question. How do we balance the safety of our judges with their ability to actually participate in public life? The justices are meant to interpret the laws that govern our society. But how effectively can they do that if they are completely walled off from the very society they serve? Security is undeniably essential, as the facts have clearly shown us today. But that security obviously comes at a profound cost to accessibility and normalcy. It's a complex, evolving puzzle, and for sure, one that will shape the nature of our highest court for years to come. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it gave you a clear, structured look into the unseen realities of judicial security.